All right, guys. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 4 of the Bomber Podcast, and I am fired up, man. I've got a guy that I met a couple years ago, Bobby Tewksbary. Bobby, we met at the Alliance Summit in Oklahoma City a couple years ago. I think that was the first time you and I met.
That's correct. Yeah, Oklahoma City Alliance. What do they call it? It was like a little
Alliance
mini convention.
Summit, the Fast Pitch Summit. Yeah, that was the first time we'd done that, man, and it was really successful. Last year was even bigger. I got to have you back, so I got to get you to commit to coming back this year. I don't think you've been to a World Series game, so we got to get you to a World Series. Like, it's nuts, bro. Like, I know you got daughters too, so you're vested. You have to.
Yeah, we watch a lot of softball in the house. We've got a lot of friends in the coaching world now at that level, and yeah, we definitely need to get out to some games.
Let's go.
It looks amazing. It keeps getting bigger and it keeps growing. I think it's amazing for the sport. But it's bro, like March Madness for softball.
Yeah, bro. Like, especially with you having daughters, like when you see the atmosphere of, I don't know what that thing holds now, 10 or 11, 12,000, well, whatever it is, it's huge. They just added on to it, but it is so electric and the game is so fast, and it's just a constant just flow of energy. So it's way cool. Yeah, it's really fun. We got to make sure that happens. So tell us about you and tell us how you got to this place in the sport and kind of what you're doing now. And I want to gravitate into Pelotero, but I'd really love to know about you first. Let them know who we're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in New Hampshire, which is not exactly the hotbed for baseball, softball, or really any sport outside of like hockey or skiing. But that's where I grew up. That's where I'm from, and went to school at the University of Vermont and had a great experience up there, and still love it there. Still call it home. I'm in Texas now, but I still call New Hampshire home. And didn't end up getting drafted. I got hurt my senior year of college, had to have surgery on my thumb, and did play 2 years of independent ball. But my background is baseball. Baseball is where, like, being on the field is where I feel like myself the most. That's how I explain it to people. Pretty introverted, normal life. On the field, I'm loud, I played shortstop. I'm in the middle. I'm directing traffic, all that. So got hurt my senior year, ended up playing a couple of years of independent baseball, which was a great experience, and then got into coaching. Had a facility for about 10 years, and we had travel ball teams. We lessons, travel ball, memberships. It was a really good experience. Very fond memories of that time. While that was going on, got very, very heavy into the hitting world. And really since like 2009, I've been pushing hard in the hitting space and learning. And I always tell people I try to prove myself wrong. That's the way I try to make the information better. I try to find holes. I try to prove myself wrong all the time. In 2015, had a big tipping point moment in my life, which is kind of what brings me to where we're at now. I threw in the Major League Home Run Derby to one of my clients and woke up to 700-800 emails of people that wanted to work with me, which was daunting. It was
fun to enter, huh?
It was very humbling and very scary because I had no way to process and provide service to those people. I tried to reply to the emails, and it was overwhelming. And it was the first time that I've ever really felt that overwhelming demand. And it really shifted my brain. And I've always been very tech forward. I've always been an early adopter to things, like one of the first HitTrax customers, one of the first KVS customers, consultant for Diamond Kinetics. I've been at the leading edge of this stuff because I believe in understanding objectively what's happening. And I feel that when you understand the objective piece, it's easier to understand the feel piece. It's not like I'm trying to create robots. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to understand what's happening so that we can learn what it feels like so we can repeat it. So when the home run derby thing happened, woke up to all these emails, it really broke my brain and said, I started feeling like I needed a way to use technology to really scale what was happening. And with Pelotero, that's what we do. We bring in data and we can build custom training plans based on the data. And it's very thorough and it's very dynamic and it's really, really cool. Really excited about what we're bringing to the industry, both baseball and softball.
Could you introduce Pelotero to me I guess now, like I'm thinking 2 years ago, and I've watched from afar quite a bit, and you shared some more with me a week or two ago, and I literally my brain has been on loop for the last 2 weeks or so, trying to replay in my head everything you shared with me. Talk about, if you would, like share with people what the premise. Obviously, that's a deep dive when you start getting into Pelotero, like what it is. But share with everybody what I know. It's a passion. I know it's the love of what you do, man, in the sport. So I'd love for them to get a little bit of a piece of what Pelotero is, and then have the opportunity and how they can find out more about it and etc.
Yeah, well, the basic idea is using data in technology and sports is really hard. Right now, it's too hard to collect data, it's too hard to organize data, and it's too hard to actually implement the data. So there's like these three major hurdles that we have to get over. I'm going to tell a quick story. We did a big test event 2 weekends ago, and I'm just going to walk through what happened to give an example of what is happening right now. It's like we've hit a tipping point with what we're doing. So I went to this event. There were over 60 hitters at this event. I brought my phone. I took my phone out. I used an app to take video. Every single swing was automatically converted into 140,000 data points. So literally, if you can take your phone out and take video, that's what I did. But I was using an app with AI
Wow.
to translate. So literally, I'm standing there. Hitter comes up, I film them. Next hitter comes up, I film them. So I capture video on 60 plus hitters. Now, if you had to do analysis on 60 plus hitters, how long do you think that would take you?
Yeah, you couldn't do it. It's not a thing.
It
Yeah,
would be more than an hour.
yeah,
Like is it 1 minute per player? If it's 5 minutes per player, that's 300 minutes. That's 5 hours. That's a
yeah.
lot of extra work, right? So the last hitter took his last swing. I opened up my computer. I clicked import, and it pulled in all the videos in about 8 seconds. I clicked another button, and it processed the assessment, and so it's translating. It's looking at swing plane. Are the hands leaking? Are they lunging? Are they? It's looking at over 50, 60 different data points in a swing. That happened in about 15 seconds. And then I
Wow.
clicked another button, and it went through the entire roster and built a customized training plan based on that data. And that was about 20 seconds. So within minutes of the last swing taken, I had captured, processed, and delivered custom training plans to all the players. And then the person I was demoing for said, well, let me see a program. Let me see what it looks like. Pull up a program. First drill, it was a rear foot elevated. So it's a drill where you get the right foot up. It's meant to make you feel downhill. You could
Hmm.
do it like swinging down on a mound for baseball. It's really meant for players who lean back, swing uphill too much.
Right.
So we pulled up the video. The kid's swinging. He's leaning back, swinging straight up. So everything is done. And when I processed the programs, every player got a different plan because it was built on their characteristics, on their qualities of their swings. So that's
It,
like mind blowing. If you deal with volume of players, you know how difficult it is to capture, organize, and deliver on and execute on. So
yeah,
when
it's
I
hard.
clicked that button, I'm like, I knew it worked because we had demoed it. But this is like a new thing that like it's when I say we're at a tipping point. Like you can be done with the event when the event's over. You don't have to go back to your computer and like figure out how to organize and spreadsheets and I'm gonna make a Google sheet for every player. What am I doing? And then like with the programs, all the videos are linked, all the instructions are linked. It's just you're done, and it's crazy. Like, and
It's
then with that, we
nuts.
can. That's just the swing video. So if you have bat sensor data, if you have batted ball data, movement screen data, like plug all that data in, and it's live on the profile, and you can build programs in seconds. It's
That
pretty
was the
wild.
part. No, it's incredible, and that was the part that kind of set me back when you and I and Chris got on the call the other day and kind of went through it. Was just the integration between the movement screening, the swing data. If you're really fortunate and you have some batted ball data, obviously that becomes a really big piece of the pie. But I was just because we struggle with that with the Bombers, man. We're spread out all across the country. I can't duplicate myself or Cat Osterman or anybody else across the board that much as I would love to. And so having this piece, and I'm excited because we're pushing forward with a with an opportunity with Pelotero on the Bomber side of it, and I know that this is going to be a big deal for us. And so I'm excited about. That's why I wanted to have you on, was because you showed me running like it was crazy, like their gait and all that. I mean, the use
It's
of
no way. Yeah.
AI, like was that a really big turning point? Was when the integration of how big of an influence artificial intelligence is becoming in that process? Did you see that coming, or is that part of what
So
has made this
yeah.
scale a little bit easier?
So our platform is a version of AI, and it's more like there's different types of AI. Like most people, I think when you hear the term AI, you're thinking like it's machine learning. Like unsupervised machine learning is you basically give the computer a bunch of data and say, hey, you figure it out, computer.
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing. You just use Kat Osterman as an example. We could take all of her knowledge and all of her checkpoints and everything that she would ever consider and build it into our platform. Like we could have a Kat Osterman clone in our system based on what she looks at, what she thinks is valuable. So we train the computer to think like us. The data and technology is capturing things that we already know. And there's some things that data captures that we can't see, like hip rotation velocities. Like there's things that we can't see, ground pressure stuff. We can't see that. We need devices. But ultimately, all of those things are being translated into stuff that is meaningful. So if you have poor ground pressure, if you have slow hips or fast hips or whatever it is, like the example I use all the time is if I tell you somebody's attack angle is 25 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
that probably means something to you, right?
Yeah.
That means they're
Yeah.
swinging straight up. If their
Yeah.
attack angle is -5, they're swinging straight down.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking the meaning of the data and we're using that. The number alone is almost irrelevant. It's what the number means. It's what the data means that helps us make decisions. And ultimately, our platform is automating decisions based off of many, many, many data points. So if you have a player whose attack angle is -25, or sorry, positive, if they're swinging straight up, you could give me drills and recommendations for that player on that data point alone, I would
Yeah.
assume. Right? You
Yeah.
probably do a
For
high
sure.
T drill.
Yeah.
Maybe there's certain things you would do for that player just on one data point. So then you start building in the 50 plus metrics for the swing mechanics. And then you throw in the bat sensor data, which is going to be another 4 or 5 meaningful data points. And then the batted ball. And it just, you plug all this information and it all combines to help us make better decisions as quickly as possible.
It's crazy. And that was the part that that I knew then when you shared with me the scope of it. I knew that at that point we had to really stop and take pause and figure out how we made this move. I talk to you anytime the Bombers do something, it's like turning a cruise ship, right? Like, so, it's really difficult to implement things. I'm excited about the move forward with this. Talk about how where you find baseball's influence moving towards the sport of softball. And obviously, you watch a little bit more softball. I would assume you probably even are talking with and working with softball players to a certain extent. How do you see baseball's influence in the game showing up, at least from your perspective? I know it's happening on my end, like I know it is,
Yeah.
but like in your perspective, what are you seeing?
Well, one of the things that one of the most common complaints I hear from coaches is just lack of investment. And I feel like the tide is turning on that there's money being poured in specifically to softball. It's not
Yeah,
baseball products being adjusted for softball or like throwing a
yeah,
pink colorway on it and saying, oh, it's a softball product now. Very clear that the softball industry is not like that.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's obvious. Um, I think the baseball industry actually benefits from golf. So like anything that's happening in baseball happened 5 years ago in golf. So it's like this pass through effect where certain technologies are created, they get modified, they get adjusted. And my whole focus is on the application of the data. So whether it's technology being built for golf or not, I don't really care. My lens is always, how am I going to apply it to a different sport?
mm-hmm.
So the investment side to me, like with the College World Series as an example, so amazing to see. And like NIL stuff, you see like the University of Oklahoma has got their player collective, and like there's legit opportunity being created that's way different than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's a different world is emerging. things
Well,
like
especially
Athletes
with the
Unlimited.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
especially with I was going
yeah,
to say you touched on Athletes Unlimited, especially with the void of a real pro softball
yeah.
outlet for them. It's great to see it starting to find its way into the college sport. I listened to a podcast that you and Joey were talking about. One of the things you were talking about, and I've always been. You mentioned golf. I've always been super interested in and knowing its role. And you were talking about how much excited you were was grip pressure, right? Just on the bat and how much, because I know with golf, like, man, if my grip is weak and things start happening with the ball, I don't hit the ball well enough in the first place, but I can really start to manipulate what I'm doing with the golf club just with my grip. So it was
Yep.
cool listening to you guys talk about that.
There's so many details and so many levels of nuance with this stuff. And what I see, the reason I brought up the investment side of it is you have like the College World Series, and it feels like storylines are starting to emerge. And it on the pro side, like baseball, you've got Red Sox, Yankees. In basketball, you've got the Celtics and the Lakers, and like there's all this
Mm-hmm.
like history and all this stuff that's existed for so long. Like Oklahoma, I mean, they're a monster. They are a powerhouse, and
It's
they're like
nuts.
it's
It's
almost
nuts.
like a villain now, where it's like who's gonna like David versus Goliath almost. And
Yep.
there's people coming for him, and every year they just keep showing up and they keep showing up, and it's crazy. But that's becoming more known generally. Like
Yeah.
it's not like this subsector of the sports industry. Like people now know. I mean, we watch softball as if there's softball on the ESPN app, it's on in the house. Like
Yeah.
it's a very, very fun sport to watch. It's different enough from baseball, but it's still the same. It's the same general concept, but it's its own sport. It really is its own sport.
It really is.
I feel like the athleticism and the just overall player development has changed so much from 10 years ago when I first started like really watching softball like 10 years ago. And it just feels like the athletes that are showing up, like slapping is very minimal now. And the defense is crazy because the third baseman can go get it. They can,
Yeah.
they can make the play. It's not, the game is so quick and so fast now that the game is evolving, and the data and the technology that's coming from scouting reports and in-game data, I think that's going to be the next frontier that will really change things, where you can't just roll one arm out there for a weekend,
No.
which 10 years
Yeah.
ago, it seemed like that happened. You could just ride an arm, and now you got to bring in, you're doing matchups, and you got one girl that throws hard, one girl's a rise, one's a drop, one's a curve, one's a spin. It's like all these different types of pitchers now. And that to me is like closer to bullpenning in the baseball world,
Yeah.
where you have different matchups that require different pitchers, and there's more game strategy to that, which I think is really cool, because 10 years ago, you just have one power arm and she just comes and dominates for 7 innings. And it's like, it's good for them that they're dominating, but it's like
Yeah.
not as entertaining to me. So,
Well, that's what Kat and I
yeah,
talked about with the 1-0 back in the day, the 1-0 game, right? Like that was the sport, right? They had to move the daggum mound back because pitching was so much further ahead than hitting, and technology. And you talk about the defenses. My daughter came up as a slapper. She'd have had a hard time playing in today's game, just from the
yeah,
standpoint. I mean, her speed worked, but the short gamer stuff that she lived on is extremely difficult to just be that. There's still a space for it, but you've got to be able to push the defense around a little bit, hit with some power. Um,
well, it's
the
like,
defenses are making the biggest adjustments, I think, because they're covering so much more space. That's the influence I'm seeing from the baseball. Baseball will give up a whole side of the field to defend the space that it's getting hit a lot. And
yeah,
in softball, you're starting to see that even more too, man.
yeah. Well, if I think back to when I was in high school, and this was, shoot, 25, 30 years ago, getting old, man.
Hey, if you're
There
old,
was
what
always
am
like,
I? That's the problem.
yeah. Well, I said something last night. I got a phone call from a college coach last night, and my wife was like, "How old is he?" He sounded like young. I'm like, "No, he's not that young. He's like in his 40s." I'm like, "Shoot, I'm in my 40s. I can't say I can't say that anymore."
I'm almost 60, bro. God dang, you're really making me feel old.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. But so when I thinking back to high school, it was the whole argument was like the baseball swing isn't the baseball swing and softball swing. They're different swings. And like the girls would all like smack their backs when they swung. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you hitting yourself in the back
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
it's stupid.
It's nuts.
Doesn't make any sense. But there was a very clear, like, there is a baseball swing and there's a softball swing. And being a baseball person, like, parents wouldn't bring their daughters to hit with me
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, you teach the baseball swing? We don't do the baseball swing. It's like, the
Yeah.
swing is the swing. They're like, we both have two arms, we both have two legs, there's the torso, there's a pellet, like, we have the same body parts. There's variations, and there's things like carrying angles and cue angles and laxity issues that are very different, and there's different elements that need to be considered. But ultimately, like, we're creating a bat path, and that bat path has to hit something in a very short timing window, with movement, with all these different considerations. But the swing is a swing. That's, to me, that one of the biggest changes over even the last 5-10 years. The swing is now the swing. I don't get
Yeah.
any questions anymore. 10 years ago, tons of questions. What's the difference between baseball and softball swing? I'm like, there's no difference. It's
Well,
softball.
and look at how.
Softball is quicker but slower. Like, when
Yeah.
you break it down, it's
Yeah.
a shorter reaction time, but the ball is in the zone longer, because the ball's going, when it's crossing the plate, it's going 65 ish. A girl going 70, it's going to decelerate. So it's a shorter reaction time, but it's in the zone longer. Baseball, it's a longer reaction time, but it's in the zone shorter. It's different things. It's different considerations.
Different. You know what's crazy is the emergence of the four seam fastball over the last, like how prevalent a four seam and up in the zone. I mean, there's probably a lot that baseball guys could pay attention to from the standpoint that softball have been having to hit a rise ball for a while. The evolution of it, not that it's new, but the induced vertical break and getting above balls. And it was really cool hearing the Rangers talk about that in the postseason. The guy was talking about off their hack, or whatever spin ball machine they were using, but just balls that were moving up in the zone. That wasn't a thing in baseball for a while, but man, now you better be able to hit balls up in the zone. Whereas in softball, that's a thing all the time. It's been there forever.
It's one of the things that happens when you have more data, more relevant in-game data. So in baseball 10 years ago, in pro ball, there's a joke they call AWRs, average white righties. You get the 6'3" righty, 6'3" righter, sinker slider guy. Like, they all high release point, throwing downhill, running the ball down. And then, like, the swing revolution happened because everybody's throwing sinkers, and every hitting coach was saying, get on top of the ball. It's like, all right, well, the pitcher's trying to get under your barrel and you're trying to swing down on it. It's like, it doesn't add up. So then guys started trying to lift. Now hitters are trying to lift the ball to get under the sinker, which is like in the softball world would be a drop. Like, you don't want to swing over a drop. You don't want to swing under a rise. And it's different. I love the word dilemma. The dilemma that the pitcher creates for the hitter. There's vertical break pitchers, there's horizontal break pitchers, and then there's diagonal pitchers. Softball is interesting because you're basically one arm slot, and there's no quick pitching, there's no slide steps, there's no, like, guys that pick their leg up and shimmy and try to create a timing thing. Like, once that arm circle starts, like, it's happening.
It's coming.
It's gonna be the same, whether there's a runner on base or not. So there's less timing variation in softball, which to me says, like, you need to be able to get on time no matter what in softball. You're not getting quick pitched. It's less variation. And then also from an arm slot standpoint, you got guys that are straight over the top, 3/4, low sidearm, windmill. So, or not windmill, submarine style.
Submariners, so
there's different, in baseball, you look at release height and you look at horizontal approach angle, vertical approach angle. There was a trend for a bit where they were actually trying to find shorter pitchers with low release points because it's making that ball ride more deceptively. So you went
tapping into softball now.
Yeah, you get the AWRs that are like the tall righty sinker guy because you want that downhill plane, and then it switched to low guys with low arm slots to get the ball to ride. And then it all comes back to scouting reports and understanding the competition and who's the person on the mound right now. How does your swing match up with their stuff, and what do you need to be looking for, what you need to be avoiding, and everything's going to get more and more approach based. It's the game within the game. The game within the game is getting more and more prevalent. And that's, to me, the best part, because it's the real game. It's not like there's a pitcher on the mound throwing. You hit the ball,
Yeah.
run to first. It's like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Fundamentals,
It's
got it. Let's get
it's
into
so
the details.
sad, bro. It's so sad, bro. Like in softball, there's still some of that mentality. See ball, hit ball, like go compete. Like I get it. Like we talk about all the time, man. We got to compete. We got to grind out at bats, all that stuff. But man, you go into today's game without a plan and approach, and kind of, obviously really helps when you know what you're good at, what you're not good at, kind of steer you in the right direction on what you're going to hunt, what you're not going to hunt. So many players aren't even aware of what they're not good at this point, right? Because they haven't done some of those assessments, and they haven't had the luxury of being in an environment where someone's going, hey man, like you really struggle in deceleration and you don't have any breaks at all. So anything running down and away, if you're a right-handed hitter, you're going to really struggle with. We've got to spit on that and try to get something on the white and know that this matchup doesn't work for you. And you're going to have a long day if you approach it this way. It's not a thing in our sport as much as it should be. I'm saying that no one's doing that, because there certainly is. But
well, it's being prepared. It's being prepared.
Yeah.
When I watch Oklahoma hit, it's very obvious to me that they are sitting pitches.
Oh man, big time.
It's so obvious. And I think most hitters, like almost all amateur hitters, when an amateur hitter doesn't do this, it's so amazing. Most hitters are up there trying to hit everything. They're every single time that arm comes forward, they are worried about hitting that pitch.
Yeah.
Regardless of what type it is. They're not sitting pitches in counts, and they're not sitting zones. They're just up there stressed out of their mind going, if this ball's in the zone, I need to swing. Yeah. And they're not looking. I mean, you got up, down, left, right, front to back, curve, angles. Like there's times when you just have to look certain pitches. And when you get it, you can't miss.
No, you don't get those chances very often. Yeah, exactly. Well, what's crazy, man, is like one of the big dilemmas, and we struggle with this. I struggle with this on our own team. We talk about, hey, what were you sitting on? Like, what were you hunting? We talked about the plan. Well, I was worried about the pitch on the outer half. Like, you're worried about a pitch. It's not a strike. Like, so many hitters go to the plate worried about pitches that they shouldn't even swing at, and that's a dilemma in our sport. Part of it's because we have rivers, right? That's a big, you used the word dilemma. A big dilemma in softball is like it always freaks me out watching Major League Baseball, and you'll see the baseball umpire report afterwards. The guy missed one pitch or two pitches, and it was something in the shadow, right? It was just something. It was a borderline pitch, but he might miss two of them. In softball, we have a river that usually is about a ball width, and sometimes it can be a ball and a half width. And God forbid they have really nasty run, right? Like that is the challenge that I think is the biggest difference between softball and baseball. Is the plate is the plate in baseball. Like the plate is the plate. You don't have to figure out what the zone is today. And I get it. There's some, does he like it a little more elevated, or does he like it a little more down, or does she like it a little more, on the edge? She'll give you this, she'll give you the black. It's not giving you a ball and a half, right? A ball and a half is a whole different deal. And that's a thing in softball. So it's challenging, and that's part of us. It's done such a poor job, the river has, in steering players towards bad swings and bad movement patterns, because they're trying to hit pitches they have no business trying to hit. It's tough, man.
It's a problem. It is a problem. The entire game revolves around home plate. So I had this line of thinking the other night, because I was talking to a player who used to really struggle with at bats. Like if he struggled in his first at bat of the game, really struggling the rest of it, like they would snowball on, right? It would get out of control, emotions, just kind of trouble maintaining and composure. And I gave him the analogy. I was like, look, every time you come up to the plate is like one day. Right. If in our normal lives, we have a day, at the end of the day, we can reflect on that day. Was it a good day? Was it a bad day? What happened? What was good? What was bad? Every at bat, every time up is like a day. So how do you wake up? Do you brush your teeth? Do you what do you clothes you wear? Like that's like your on deck routine. That's your between pitches, and the whole journey around the bases. That's like every time you come up to bat, the opportunity is to score a run. You're either going to score a run or you're going to make an out. or you're not, or you could be left on base and not, neither one. But the ultimate goal is to score a run. So everything around that home plate, the strike zone, that if the strike zone is really bad, the game isn't fair. The game's not being played the way it's intended to be played. And I tweeted about this the other night that I've been kind of against the automatic strike zone. I actually think it makes the game more pure because of all the catching stuff that's happening. I don't know if that's morphed over into the softball world as much, but the whole presenting of pitches and the glove movement, I hate it. I feel like that's the catcher's job is to catch the ball. The ball should be called a ball or strike based on where it crosses. So how they receive the ball should not have any influence on if it does not have any influence on if it crossed the zone or not. So when I see
it's bigger in softball.
Glove,
it's bigger. Yeah, so you see catchers like leaning out, trying to get around pitches because it's out over there in the river. They're trying to get it back over here.
Yeah, yeah. It's to me, it's a weak point of the game when the strike zone is bad. Yeah, it's as a fan, it's horrible. In baseball, you've got the box on the screen every time.
Yeah.
The only guy that needs to know where that pitch is doesn't have the information. The guy behind the plate doesn't have that info. We're sitting on we're sitting at home watching on TV going, that's a ball, but he called a strike. Or that's a strike, he called a ball. It's such a bad experience. And technology will get there. It'll get there. I know there's a lot of people working on those types of problems. And I mean,
speaking of that, where do you see tech? Where do you see
10 years?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to ask you, man. Like, I know you are as invested in what the future of tech looks like it might be doing, and you're always trying to stay out in front. Where do you see it going, man?
Automatic strike zone will be here. It'll be on every field. I envision a world where you're just going to go hang up a phone on a fence, and it's just going to happen. It'll be like calibrated. The computer vision's going to just keep getting better. You're just going to hang a phone up on a fence. It's going to auto calibrate. And you're going to get balls and strikes. You're going to get batted ball data. You're going to be able to track every player on the field at all times. It's just there's a tennis app right now. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a tennis app. You hang your phone up on the fence and it tracks the velocity of your serve. It marks where it bounced on the court. So you can use your Apple Watch to do replays like it's Hawkeye on your watch.
That's crazy. Nuts. That's nuts.
Data's not going anywhere.
Speaking of how big of this is I'm saying it from a real basic layman question, so don't beat up the man. But how important? Explain to people how important understanding how you move and how much bad movement pattern. Like they think about the swing so much, right? They think about the bat moving through the zone, and so many people are not aware, and I'm really taking it down to the most layman perspective, but how much their movement patterns affect their production and how important it is to know how to move better.
Yeah. It's a big topic. I think the general population doesn't even know what good movement is. I think about this a lot. If you go to a softball game with me, right? I'm a baseball person. You're going to watch that game completely different than I am. You're going to notice details. There's going to be things happening on that field that I am completely unaware of that are very important to you. So if use any analogy, like if it's a doctor looking at an X-ray or a CT scan or something, right? Like they can see things that we can't see because they're trained and they know what good is and they know what bad is and they have a lens for that. Something simple like a hip hinge. Most people, they can watch people take ground balls and they don't really see the hip hinge. Whereas if you and I watch it, you're going to see some players have very rounded backs or catching the ball too deep.
Yeah.
Their gloves are angled. Their glove in their hand are angled poorly. There's all these details that people just don't notice because they don't know it even exists. It's not that they don't want to or they're ignoring it. They flat out do not know it exists. So things like movement I think a lot of people know what it looks like when it looks right, but when it's not right, they don't know how to diagnose it. They don't know what the missing components are.
That's what excites me about your app, bro. That's what excites me about Pelotero. Yeah, man.
It's going to be crazy. When you start to stack all those things in and have it have it not only like organized in one place, but also actionable. So all of those things will be instantly considered just
Nuts.
automatically. And
It's
that's
nuts.
one of the things that we talk about internally a lot is there's having a lot of data is not a bad thing. There's like this whole old school, new school thing happening right now
Mm-hmm.
where people are anti-data. And it's like, well, the more data you collect, the more you realize that everybody's individual. And if you bucket people, you're artificially describing them. You're not like, our model is based on individual data points, and every single data point we have tells the story of that athlete. We're not going like, oh, well, you're a bad speed guy or you're a swing down guy. It's very granular, right? It's like every
Mm-hmm.
detail is being considered.
Yeah.
And that's what allows us to make good decisions because we're factoring in every single piece of it. Um, the movement piece is massive though. Movement, strength, like I don't know if you've looked into motor preferences at all, but motor preferences
Yeah.
is so real. It's
It's tough, man.
so real.
Well, and that's the biggest
Yeah.
challenge, Bobby. That's the biggest challenge. I just think about it from the travel ball perspective, and thinking about you know fellow coaches that I know that run programs, like I do, and what we talk about, and you just know that you always having to deal with from a big big macro, like just all these people, and try to just kind of be middle of the ground. Well, this will work for most of these guys, and most of these guys, like I hate approaching that because I know that's not the right approach. I really struggle with it, and it's why it led me to really. And we talked about this. You showed me 2 years ago where you were going with it, and I knew it for the last 2 years. And I saw you at the ABC, and I was like, dude, I've got to call. I've got to call Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to make this what's important to me for our players and their player development. We have to be in a better place, and we have to do a better job of providing them the resources. Excuse me, the resources to have a better chance, because that's really what we're trying to do, is give them a chance to be successful. At the end of the day, it's just really try to be successful as best you can, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's
You
hard.
want to give all your players, their best chance to make it.
Yeah.
Like I told a college coach this morning, culture will matter most. Like everybody will have the tools. Everybody, like, you can get a TrackMan, you can get Yakkertech, you can get Flight Scope, you can get Rapsodo. Like everybody's going to have everything. Everybody, like, that's the world we're going to. It
Yeah.
All of this is going to boil down to work ethic, culture, who you are as a player, how bad you want it. And I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
great world to live in because
Yeah. No, it's where we
the
should
game
be.
will the game
Yeah.
will elevate so much. Like the standards will be pushed
Yeah.
considerably. And that, to me, that's amazing. I've always approached kind of coaching and now my business life as like, what would I want if I could start my career over again? If I could do it all over again, knowing what I know now, what would I want to have?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate lens that I bring to everything that I look at. Like, how do we make it easier? How do we make it faster? How do we get the best information to the most people and do it like very quickly with high quality?
Yeah, yeah. No, and it's becoming easier. You just think about the power of these cameras. You mentioned what the iPhone. I use the iPhone, but what a phone has the power to do with this technology, and you being able to now put a product together that ties that. I mean, as much as you filming it with your phone and starting that process towards getting the answers that you want. And
Yep.
I think that's challenging because we deal with that. Like, and I can't even imagine how, how prevalent is it that major league hitters have hitting coaches outside of their major league organization? How normal is that?
It's pretty normal. It's pretty
Yeah,
normal. When you look at it, that's an interesting one for me.
yeah,
Private sector, it's like private sector versus public sector. The
mm-hmm.
like big companies don't always need to innovate to be successful. If you look at Major League Baseball, the business, a lot of the time their focus is on not screwing people up as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
developing and adding value.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you take a known commodity and try to make it better, you're taking a risk.
yeah.
And for a
Makes
lot
sense.
of players, they're not willing to take that risk. If you're making $4 or $5 million a year, hitting 230, like you have a choice. Am I going to try to
Yeah,
get better and hit 280 and maybe make 8 million, 10 million a year? Or if this doesn't work, it goes to zero.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of business decisions being made. Um, and like realistically, like Anthony Rendon, I don't know if you saw his quotes the other day about how like I thought the way the questions were asked were pretty unfair to him. He basically said baseball is not his top priority, that he puts his faith and his family first, which is a very reasonable answer. Like a very,
Sure.
it's
Sure.
the right answer if we're being
It's a
honest.
start. Yeah. It's
But
a good
there's
starting
like,
point.
yeah, but there's a whole perception that he doesn't like baseball. There's like rumors that like he just doesn't even like baseball, and he's getting paid 8 figures. Like
Yeah.
he's getting paid a lot of money to play the game. And
Yeah.
like what else, what other job could he go out and get right now that he could make that kind of money? It's
Yeah.
like somebody put a contract in front of me, signed it. What's the problem? Is he, if he's not showing up to play, that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
But it's from a business side, there's a high percent. I don't want to say that. There's a percentage of players. I'm not going to put a number on it, but there's a percentage
Mm-hmm.
of major league players that they understand this is a job. This is my way to provide for my family.
Yeah.
They're not everybody is out there like truly grinding, trying to become the best they can possibly be. They're
Yeah.
not everybody seeks greatness, and that's like just the reality. Like some
Yeah.
guys
What's
just
the risk
aren't
versus that
right.
reward on the end of it versus the risk you're taking in?
And
Because,
there's a difference between trying to get better versus seeking greatness.
yeah,
There's a different switch there.
no, it's a great
Some
point.
guys figure out what works and they hold on. Some
Yeah.
guys continue to pursue, and there's a lot of dimension there with how secure you are and how much you value
Yeah.
baseball and like ego and all that. There's a lot to unpack there, but I find like kids that are younger, kids that are trying to get into college, like they are so actively pursuing things.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a deeper passion, there's a deeper effort level a lot of the time. And I'm not trying to make blanket statements about professional baseball or anything, but it's
Sure.
just a different
Yeah.
mind. It's
Sure.
a different mindset.
Yeah.
There's different
Yeah.
when you get it. If you've ever worked in the professional setting, there are definitely tons of players who are absolutely like grinders,
Yeah.
working, trying to become their best. But there
Yeah.
is a different level with like seeking greatness and
Sure.
like
We,
understanding it's a job.
we run into that on the softball side, man. Like, I'm fortunate, I'm blessed. I get to coach some of the best players in the world, some of the best 18-year-olds in the world. Like, I get to share the field with them, and they're chasing getting a college scholarship. Well, that happens September of their junior year, and so there's always that little cloudy period where I'm looking at them and go, okay, you've been grinding out to get to this point, right? Now what? Are you chasing greatness? You want to be a 4-time All-American? Do you want to step on the field and play day one? They all expect and want that. If you ask them, they'd all say, yes, I want that. But does your work ethic match that, right? Are we still trying to get better, right? Are we still trying to achieve competitive greatness that is going to enhance that resume that you want to build towards day one walking in and being a starter, at Oklahoma or Texas or wherever,
Yeah.
it's tough,
You hear
man.
the stories. You hear stories where kids they get accepted to a college, they take their foot off the gas.
Yep.
Second semester of high school, they tumble. It's like, are you happy getting there, or do you want to thrive when you're there? And
Yeah.
it's just it's human. It's normal. Like
It's
it
no, it's
happens.
real. Yeah, and I think why that's important. You got to just surround yourself with people that are willing to have tough discussions with you sometimes, and that's what I appreciate about our parents on my team is they're willing to let me have those tough discussions with. In fact, they sometimes say, "Hey, you need to talk to her,"
Yeah, they want it.
and
They seek it.
sometimes I do need to talk to them. Sometimes I'm like, "No, she's good. She's fine, man. She's good." Because it's hard what we ask them to do for sure. Well, speaking of that, man, you've got daughters. Like, what do you hope they experience when they get to this point of being in the travel world or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, my approach with my daughters is I just want them to pursue what they're passionate about. If that happens to be softball, that's fantastic. If it's golf, if it's tennis, if it's music, if it's art, I just want them to hopefully I want to put them in a position where we're fortunate enough that they can do that, right? There's a lot of
Yeah,
people in the world that have to do other things because of their life circumstances. So
yeah,
if we're in a position for them to pursue their passions, that's going to be the best thing ever.
That's gonna be fun.
They're
Yeah.
awesome. They're awesome kids. And when softball season rolls around and it's on TV, they are dragging me out back to hit. They just want to hit and they want to play softball. We got a bases set up in the backyard and they just love it. When it's not basketball season, when it's basketball season, my sister-in-law is a Division I coach. When we watch her games, they want to go out front and shoot hoops, right? So
There you go.
it's kind of
That's
like
cool.
what's in front of them is where they're at. They play soccer. I haven't signed them up for softball. Like I just want them to have fun and I want them to learn and just develop their own passion for something. I don't want
Well,
to
when they're
impose
ready, I
my
know a
on them.
really good program that is not real far from you. I know one, so we good.
Yeah.
That's
No, but
awesome.
in the on the global side, like the bigger macro level of this, I see what's happening with like the College World Series. You're seeing more and more like social media posts with professional softball players being featured in
Yeah.
advertisements, and like I want role models. When I found out I was having a daughter, I went to like other females in my life and like asked them about like from a coach. I'm terrified to like impose on them as a coach. My oldest is like now understanding that I'm a coach and that like I might have an idea about like hitting and stuff because my oldest has a pretty low tolerance for failure. Like if she is failing, she'll want to shut it down. I'll be like, okay, we'll shut it down. Like I'm
Yeah.
not willing to push her through failure yet if she's just going to break down.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of like doing hard things and like we have conversations about what it means to be brave and what it means to be tough. And like whenever they hurt, if they're crying or something, cause they like, they'll like stub their toe or whatever, I'm like, are you hurt or are you scared? Like, did something surprise you and you're like, you're scared and nervous, or like, is there actual pain? So there's like a lot of conversations around that. And I pay a lot of attention to like reward type systems and like what I'm applauding versus what I'm being negative about. Like if they swing and miss, I'm telling them great swing, like good job. I'm asking them to try again, not be disappointed. Like if you tried your best and it didn't work, like dude, you're 6 years old. You're not supposed to hit every ball. Like, what are we talking?
Like, we know a bunch of older kids that can't hit every ball. So you're good.
Yeah. So it's I'm so much more concerned about them like learning that failure happens and like you just need to put your best effort forward always.
Yeah.
And it seeking role models for that. Like there's a couple college programs that have been very kind to us and we go to games and they get hugs from the coaches and it's like,
it's cool.
They're getting into that culture a little bit. And like we watch TV and they see a coach they know and they're going crazy. And like,
that's fun.
It's really cool to like, I know how privileged that I am to have that for them. And it's really cool. But just bigger opportunities, just, I don't care if it's softball. If it's softball, great. But
everybody asks me about my granddaughters the same way. Like, hey, you hope they play softball? And I'm like, yeah, man, I hope they're just successful. But at the end of the day, would that be cool? Sure. If they're a volleyball player or a golfer, golf would be cool. I'm like one of them to play golf. That'd be fun. Yeah.
I tell my wife that all the time because then I can get out there more.
Yeah, I just follow around a golf cart. Yeah. You know what, bro? Like I share this with a lot of our coaches and like coach, like there's going to come a point where like they gravitate to you towards as a coach. And I did a really bad job. I did a really good job of coaching my own kid forever. Really. One of the best things I say a lot is when people don't know who your kid is, they would think somebody else on my team is my kid, etc. But outside of the field, I wasn't very good at it. And it took till my daughter was a junior in college playing and her telling me at one point, like, can you just be my dad and not try to be my coach? Dude, that was like her driving a stake through my chest. And I literally had to back up. I literally pulled the car over. I had to pull my truck over when she sent me that text. Mm-hmm. It set me back a little bit, but it was a powerful thing for me. And I try to share it as much as I can with people is that she didn't ever want me not to be her coach. Cause from that point forward, I never even cause she'd walk out of the dugout after a game, the game they won. And I'd ask her about the pitch she took in her second at bat. Like, why you take that pitch? It was right down the middle. like, what were you sitting on? Like immediately, like, and I'd go right into coach mode.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, once she told me that, I didn't do it. Like, we'd go out to eat. I'd hug her, tell her good game, all that. But there was a point during that meal where she would finally go, all right, bro, what'd you see?
Mm-hmm.
Right. She just wanted it to be on her terms. She wanted the dad first and the
Exactly.
coach second. And then our relationship was so much better in that respect from that point forward. I'm just disappointed in myself. I only got a year of that. I would have loved to have had 10 years of that. Right. And I was bad at it. And so I share that with coaches and make sure that they appreciate that. They want you to coach them because they trust you more than anybody,
Right. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So my oldest, I will literally ask her, can I help you right now? And if she says no, I don't say anything.
That's cool.
The funny thing is I will do that with professional players, with college players. Like if they're coming to me, if it's like a paid session where I'm supposed to be doing the session, like I will, I'm doing my job at that point. I don't do a lot of in-person stuff at all, but I'm around cages all the time. And if I see something, I generally keep my mouth shut. And I will ask players like, hey, can I offer some advice right now? Or can I share something with you? And if they say no, I'll buy my time. I'm not
sure.
If there's something obvious to me that I'm seeing that can help them, I will give them the opportunity to receive it, but I'm not going to impose it.
Yeah. That's
like
that's
even
good.
If I'm around the cage with pro guys, college, I will literally just sit there. I won't say anything. Even like
especially when you see something, you're like, yeah.
If they're with the coach, tough. I'll ask the coach, can I say something? Because I'm not trying to step on toes. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
We talked about this on Pelotero Pickle, our podcast yesterday. Like we don't want too many cooks in the kitchen situation. I would much rather be silent and have one clear message coming from one coach than to confuse a player.
For sure.
I just don't want to do that. I don't want to be the reason the player's confused. Attack something.
Well, they're already, and
get it.
And they're trying to process so much information anyway, right? Like how much you give them, and that's a big challenge in the tech space and the data and all that other stuff in the first place, is because there is no understanding, and I don't think it's absolute. A lot of people ask me about that because they think I'm some sort of knowledgeable individual on the data side, and I'm like, bro, I don't know anything. I'm just a person who is maybe more invested than you. I'm trying to find out. That's why I have conversations with you and everybody that I can, because I think it's the right approach. I use the analogy of your car, your truck. Man, back in the day, your truck didn't run right. You took it to a mechanic and they'd sit there and listen to it. I think it's this. They'd start tearing apart and it'd take them a week. And you'd be like, am I going to get my truck back? And we finally figured out what it was. Now you pull up, they plug a computer in, run a diagnostic and say, hey, you need a new sensor for this. And it happens pretty fast, right? It's probably even less expensive for the most part. Maybe not less expensive today, but you know where I'm getting with that. Like there's a better process to do that. How you share that information, that data, and the communication process as a coach, it becomes more important that you're good at that. And so like listening to you, I like that. Hey, can I help you? Can I share something that I see? I think that's a really cool approach, because sometimes we just try to impose that on players.
Well, I don't like telling players what to do. I like giving them the opportunity to try something, and then if it works, it works. Because I don't know. You don't know. Hidden secret of the coaching world. Nobody knows if anything's going to work ever.
Yeah.
We have experience. Yeah. We have things that have worked in the past.
Yeah.
We have things that haven't worked in the past. Something that didn't work in the past might work now. Like,
for sure,
we do not know at all if something's going to work ever until it actually happens.
But the intent behind the message of try this is the right approach, because we care about your success. Like that's such a really good point.
Much of the sport is finding the middle, right? I use it all the time. You can swing and miss over the ball. You can swing and miss under the ball. We're trying to find the middle. You can be early. You can be late. We're trying to find the middle. So if you're over, we're going to go the other way. If you're late, we're going to go the other way. So it's always honing. It's always honing and shrinking that margin of error. Yeah. So we're going to work in a direction, but there's no magic bullet here. There's no, we're going to do our best to provide the best, most precise thing we can, but we need to factor in a lot of stuff. We need the right context to the conversation. If you're trying to fix a problem that's being caused by a lack of mobility and you're not addressing the mobility, you're not fixing the problem.
For sure.
and that's when I say we automate decisions. Like we're trying to get to the best decision quickly, and it's
Yeah.
hard
No, it's
at any sort of scale. It's hard to do.
and I think you take the philosophical approach out of it, right? Because now it's really more about what the data is saying, right? This is the path going forward, right? And we may go against what the data is saying for X, Y, and Z because it didn't work for you, and we've got to look at a different option. But the data is pretty well what it is. Um,
See this
but for
one,
sure,
Jeet Kune Do, um, a coach in a professional organization gave me this book a couple years ago. I've been reading through it. It's a Bruce Lee book, and like
bro, that
the
looks
first,
thick, dude. Is that book
it
thick?
is, it is, it's pretty
Jeez.
thick. But I've been
See,
carrying it with me lately, and I'm underlining stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's like some like Buddhist type stuff in the beginning, and a lot of it's about like I brought this up because you said philosophical.
mm-hmm.
Like there is a truth.
Yeah,
There is a truth. It's not like my opinion, your opinion. Like the truth is. End of sentence.
yeah,
Like there
yeah,
is a truth. So like data collection is not an opinion. Data collection is like that is
yeah,
the reality.
yeah,
So like we want to be dealing in reality as often as possible. That's why we tell people all the time we want to program off game data the most. Training data is great. We can recreate game scenarios, but it's not the game. And the game is
yeah.
different
It's
because
not
there's
the game.
emotions and
Yeah,
it's different. So
yeah,
we want to program off of what is. And like there's no philosophical thing about that. There's different strategies, there's different techniques, there's different methods, but there is a truth. Like if you're swinging and missing under the ball every single time on a rise, that is what's happening and you need to make an adjustment. Period.
yeah, yeah.
So
There's
how are we going
not.
to do
Yeah, it's
that?
not my opinion. It is what it is. It is
Right.
what it is.
Right. And that's what data is though. That's what data is. It's
Yeah,
and I don't know why anybody would get mad at that.
yeah,
It's people get mad at the decisions being made by data because the right data is not being collected to tell the right story. That's what when I see old school guys getting mad about data, it's because they're not factoring in the emotion of the game and the how hard it is to play every day, because it's
yeah.
really really hard. And if you
It's
sit
really
behind a
hard.
computer every day, you don't know what it's like to wake up with your ankles and knees and hips barking at you, and like stories that guys tell about like just needing to go lay on a trainer's table for an hour just to be able to move.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, and I think with people that are, I use the word scared of data, that are put their hands up and say I'm not into that. I think a lot of times it's because they're scared it may validate that they think that they're not right. Right. It'll somehow prove in some way or shape or form that what they've been saying for years or what they've been doing for years might not be right. It might also validate that what you are doing is right. And it's really cool to know that. Right. I think sometimes that unknown is what I think tends to make people shy of it or be cautious of it. But well, and we're about to
People,
finish this up, and I don't want to take too much of your time, bro. I like you know how much I appreciate what you do, but I want to finish it up by Major League Baseball season start. Man, are you a fan? Do you watch much baseball? And if you do, who are you a fan of? I know you got to probably be Switzerland a lot of times.
no, I mean I don't really have a favorite team.
Yeah,
Um, I'm a fan of good baseball, and
yeah,
I'll say the same
cool.
thing. Like softball wise, I find myself rooting for teams that I have friends that are
Yeah,
coaching. You know,
mm-hmm.
I don't know the players in softball. I know some of the players in baseball, so
Yeah,
I want them to do well. But more than anything, I just want good baseball. I
yeah.
grew up in New Hampshire. I'm supposed to be a Red Sox fan. I really like Derek Jeter because Derek Jeter went
Yeah.
about it the right way.
That was
So,
probably hard. That was probably hard for you up there to root for the Yankees when Derek. Were you up there
but
at that point
I wasn't rooting for the Yankees. I was rooting for good
for
baseball.
Derek Jeter? Yeah, I got you.
No, I just
Yeah,
appreciate the way
yeah.
Jeter went about his business and played the game.
He was. Yeah, he was
You
the
know,
real
so
deal, man.
it's like I like good baseball. I like watching at bats. I like trying to identify when guys are sitting pitches. Like if you watch a
Yeah,
major league game and they take a center cut fastball, they're sitting off speed.
yeah,
And then you
yeah.
can just
That's
study
cool.
that bat, and I like watching between pitches what they're like trying to
Hmm.
read what they're thinking. So
Yeah,
I
the
would much rather
nuances
go
of
to
it.
batting practice. I would much rather go to BP before the game, watch the infielders take ground balls, watch the guys hit, and then get out of there and go home and watch from my couch.
Yeah.
So I can go
Yeah.
to the bathroom when I want and get a drink from the fridge when I want and not have to sit in lines and drive with
This is true.
traffic.
$12 beers. Yeah.
Yeah, but
$12 beers.
I
Yeah.
like good baseball. It's
Yeah.
all game within the game stuff. It's details. But more than anything, I just like watching players grind through at bats and compete.
I love the time of year. I just love when baseball season starts. It's like a line in the sand that, hey, we're getting to really good weather and this is going to be fun. And I'm the same way on the baseball side, man. Like I'm an Astros fan. I say that it's funny, but Jose Trevino is in our facility every once in a while. And he's doing some filming for some products and some stuff he's doing. And he's platinum catcher for the Yankees, and he and I are talking. And I'm going opening day, and he's telling me, dude, we're going to smash the Astros, right? Like, and we're going back and forth, but I'm bantering back and forth with the Yankees catcher, right? But secretly, I'm rooting for Jose Trevino because
right.
It's cool, yeah, yeah. So it's good stuff.
I think I'm most excited for Juan Soto on the Yankees. I think I think the Yankees are going to be very good this year. Just their lineup is stacked, but Soto in particular, like if you've watched his at bats game in, like day in, day out, he was in with the Nationals, he was with the Padres. I don't think people really appreciate what he does on a night to night basis, on a pitch to pitch basis. He's got his whole shuffle thing. He's got the Soto shuffle where he takes pitches.
Mm-hmm.
I've tracked a lot of his at bats. He is incredible. His barrel control, and I define barrel control as controlling the release of the barrel. Like he is so good at going opposite field when he's early. It's amazing. When he rolls over, his body language is severely mad at himself. It's awesome because he just
it probably doesn't happen. It doesn't happen a ton for him either. Probably
you can tell it's something he takes pride in. He just will not. He will not lose control of the barrel, and he's meticulous. He's so disciplined. The pitches that he takes cleanly, you're like, dude, how do you do that? And he's still so young.
He's good,
he
man.
just spits on pitches like it's nothing. And I'm sitting there going, dude, if I'm in the box, I'm chasing that 100% of the time. And he took it casually. So I'm excited for him. I don't get too in the weeds with like matchups or teams or, I don't know who's going to win the World Series. I know like Ronald Acuna is really fun to watch hit.
Dude, he's so good, man.
Like he's electric.
Yeah. The Braves are nasty. Yeah.
Mookie Betts is fun to watch. Freddie Freeman's good to watch. There's a lot of really good players that are fun to watch.
Watching look how easy it was for Mookie just to go from outfield to second base and be one of the best middle infielders in baseball. It's so stupid.
He's an elite athlete.
Yeah,
he was supposed to play second, but Pedroia was blocking him.
Yeah, go to the outfield and be an all-star outfielder.
It's more impressive that he went to right and became a Gold Glove right fielder. He's back to more of his natural position.
That's probably.
But he's just a good athlete. He's just a good athlete.
They're going to be nasty, man. They're going to be nasty. What do you think of the strikeout rate in Major League Baseball right now? Like, what do you think about it? Like, is that sustainable? Like the amount of strikeouts that teams like the Yankees strike out a ton. I mean, like it's nuts. Everybody strikes out a ton these days.
It's hard to minimize that, and there's it's a speed thing. So when guys are throwing that fast and moving the mound back probably wouldn't help this because then the pitches are just going to move more. It's a matter of decision making, and I think the neuro side of things is going to get more and more important moving forward, and like understanding brain processing and visual acuity, visual processing, like that's going to get more and more important in the scouting world. I know it's there already, but it's going to get, I think, a premium because you're going to have to be able to process things very quickly. And we can get bigger muscles and we can get in the weight room and throw weight around. I don't know what exists to make your brain do stuff faster. So finding that, I think more and more emphasis on approach and sitting pitches and just under game planning becomes so much more important. Like Donnie's an offensive coordinator. Like that's a title now in a dugout with the major leagues
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it needs to be, because
Yeah.
there's so much detail and information that needs to be processed quickly on a nightly basis.
Well, and the
So
separation between
yeah,
somebody who's helping you with your swing and then somebody who's actually helping you with managing at bats from at bat to at bat inside the game those are two different conversations. It's really cool
I
that
think
is
yeah,
starting.
I think hitters are going to have to start learning multiple swings, or learning how to manipulate their swing for different pitchers. And it goes both
Yeah.
ways, because you can make an argument that you're going to want to use the same bat every time, so you know what the adjustment is, versus using like a different bat. Like imagine going from an end loaded to a hand loaded. Can you
Mm-hmm.
make an adjustment quicker by changing the equipment, or do you want to know what the equipment you have is so the feel is consistent?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of nuance there, but understanding how to control plane, understanding how to control depth and length through the zone, to me the blend of mechanics and approach and timing is all, like, it's all mixed up in one bag. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. That's some deep stuff, man. That's where the sport's gotta, and that's where the deeper it gets, the more we've got to pay attention to how to combat a lot of these challenges that come from the sport, man. It's tough. Well, bro,
Yeah.
tell people how they find out more about Pelotero and how they can find out more about what you guys are doing, and then I'm gonna let you get off here, man. I've taken way too much of your time.
No, this was great. I appreciate you having me. You can find us. It's pelotero.com. It's Pelotero. Pelotero, it means ball player. If you didn't know, it just means ball player in
There you
Spanish.
go. We're gonna run it across the
Um,
bottom here. We're gonna put
I know.
that
There
on
we
there.
go. So yeah, social media, everything is Pelotero app. So at Pelotero app for Twitter, Instagram, but that's where you can find us. And if you're a travel ball org, if you're a college program, if you run camps or clinics and want a lot of your time back, let us know. We're here. We're here,
Awesome
and
stuff.
we're just getting started. This is gonna be really fun.
Way cool. Well, Bobby, appreciate the time, man. Can't thank you enough. Have you back on here somewhere down the road. Talk some more softball and baseball. But appreciate you again, man. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and look forward to seeing you here soon.
Absolutely.